Happy Friday. Brian Manning here with the weekly update. Let's get right to it. Let's see. Monday this week was a relatively quiet news day. Not a lot to talk about there. Tuesday this week, we had mortgage rates worsening. We definitely had some impacts with impact in the mortgage-backed security markets. I think one of the challenges we're seeing right now is just really an imbalance of supply and demand. And what I mean by that is a lot of investors are worried about purchasing mortgage-backed securities right now, because if you're purchasing mortgage-backed securities at these rates, it's pretty widely expected you're going to see mortgage rates come down next year. And if you're purchasing mortgage-backed securities right now and then you get refinanced out of these securities you purchase, beginning to middle of next year, it could have been a costly investment and maybe you don't get the rate of return there. So if you look at the MBS market right now, potentially there's less and less buyers in there, which is also causing mortgage rates to go up because there's a lack of buyers for these mortgage-backed securities, because people would just be worried about getting refinanced out of them. So definitely saw some worsening in rates there on Tuesday of this week. We also got Schiller. Schiller is kind of the gold standard for home appreciation. This gives us feedback on home appreciation for the month of for July. It was down 0.3%. I'm not surprised to see this. There was a handful of markets across the U.S. that were hit a little harder than others. It came down as much as 3%. I've said this in the past. I'm not surprised to see a little bit of reduction in appreciation here. Homes were appreciating at 25% per year. That's not sustainable. I had to calm down. So this is kind of really on track with really what I thought we would see. Wednesdays, we've got a little meltdown in the UK market. So the UK is actually behind us on fighting inflation. They actually have inflation worse than we do right now, and they were later to the game in hiking interest rates. And then you had the Bank of England come out and say, hey, we also had our form of quantitative easing. We were purchasing securities as well. And instead of letting our balance sheet run off, we're actually just going to start selling securities. And all the markets went haywire, not in a good way. Bank of England had to come out there to calm the markets down. They had to say, okay, hold on. Instead of doing that, we need to put stability back in the marketplace, and we're going to start buying securities again. So can you imagine that? They now had to go jump back in with another form of quantitative easing just to put calm into the market. So a little bit of crazy there. We also got pending home sales. This is for the month of August. Pending home sales were down 2%. Again, I'm not surprised to see that at all. When you have mortgage rates move up, mortgage rates have essentially doubled in about a 6-month time frame. So when you have mortgage rates move up as fast as they did, there's definitely going to be less buyer activity. So I'm not surprised to see that, but that's not a horrible report to see it down 2%. NAR chief economist, right after this report came out, he said that they expect to see home sales start to increase in Q4, because this is kind of widely expected that we're going to see some calming of inflation and a little bit of easing in mortgage rates in mid-November. So NAR chief economist, there we are seeing anticipated higher sales in Q4. Thursday this week, we got the final reading on GDP. So GDP is a gross domestic product. This measures growth in the United States. This was down 0.6%. So now we formally have 2 consecutive quarters of a negative GDP. Historically, if you have 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, that means you're in a recession, but this hasn't been classified as a recession yet, because other than negative quarters of GDP, you also need a softening in the employment market. And even though there's a lot of reports out there right now of companies that are going to slow down on hiring or stop hiring potentially next year, we haven't seen a softening in it yet, and employment is still really strong. Unemployment is still really low. So it hasn't technically been classified as a recession yet, but I would say 2 consecutive negative GDPs to me definitely looks like a recession. Today, Friday, we get what's called PCE. That's the personal consumption expenditure. This is the Federal Reserve's favorite gauge of inflation. So when the Federal Reserve is hiking rates or eventually lowering rates, they're watching inflation. They're trying to get this under control. They specifically look at the core rate because the core rate excludes volatile items such as food and energy. The PCE rate went up from 4.7% to 4.9%. And this is really what the Federal Reserve will be looking at, and their focus is to get this down now from 4.9 closer to 2%. The problem that we have is that the Federal Reserve is going to be extremely reactive like they're doing right now. For sure, they're going to overhike rates. They're going to move rates higher than they need to. Part of the challenge is when the Federal Reserve moves interest rates, whether it's up or down, it takes 3 to 6 months to see that ripple effect into the economy and see what's going to happen there. And right now, the Fed is so focused and gung-ho on getting this PCE number from now 4.9% down to 2%, that they're just going to keep hiking rates. And I'm not going to be surprised to see them overhike rates and put really more economic pain out there than they needed to, because they're not even taking a break to watch and see what they've done so far and what's the impact they're seeing in the economy. But that's what they're going to do. And we're certainly prepared for that, unfortunately. I'm around all weekend. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want to get pre-approved, give me a call. If you want to go through our strategic buyer consultation, I'm available 7 days a week. Call me on my cell phone, text me. Happy Friday. Hope you have a great day.